What's up, guys? My name is Jerry Canning. This is the Ancient Echoes Podcast, Part 2. Hope everybody's having a good day. I started to the end. Let's get this started. Today we're going to talk about Jesus versus Paul. In the last episode, we asked that question most churches avoid. Did Jesus abolish the law, or was he later reinterpreted to make Christianity work? Tonight, we're taking the next step, because now we established that Jesus did not teach the abolition of the law. So now, the next question is, why does the New Testament sound like it's arguing against itself? This episode is not about attacking faith. It's not about mocking faith. It's definitely not about cherry picking verses. It's about putting things in context of what the Bible really teaches and what the church refuses to teach you. So we're going to ask the hard questions here. And hard questions is, did Jesus abolish the law? Are we ready to set that down? It's about something for more uncomfortable. Putting Jesus and Paul side by side and letting them speak for themselves. No harmonizing, no smoothing over. No pretending they're saying the same thing when they're really not. I'm sorry, we think so, but they're not. Most Christians are taught one unspoken rule. Jesus never pit Jesus against Paul. That's what they're taught. Because if you do, the illusion breaks. Churches teach that the New Testament is one unified voice. Not everyone agrees, but there is no contradiction, only a mystery. Surprise. But that's not how real books printed over decades by different people work. And the early church knew this. That's why these debates exist inside the text. So let's talk about law versus grace. Let's start with the biggest fault line. Jesus says, whoever breaks one of these commandments teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus does not say, unless I die later, unless you're a Gentile, unless Paul explains this differently. He speaks in absolute terms. Now listen to Paul. What does Paul say? Paul says, you are not under a law, but under grace. This is not a clarification. This is a reversal, as against what Jesus said. Jesus says obedience matters. Paul says law observance is no longer binding. Those cannot mean the same thing. Jesus consistently ties participation in God's kingdom to behavior. Jesus says if you want to enter life, keep the commandments. Not everyone who says Lord, Lord will enter, but the one who does the will of my Father. You will know them by their fruits. Listen to Paul. A person is justified by faith apart from works of the law. By grace you have been saved through faith, not by works. Jesus emphasizes doing. Paul emphasizes believing. Again, not a nonsense, a structural difference. Jesus talks about judgment constantly. He speaks of sheep and goats, workers being elevated, consequences for actions, accountability for how people treat others. Jesus' judgment framework is ethical. Now Paul shifts judgment away from the actions towards status in Christ. In Paul's theology, belief places you in Christ. Condemnation is removed. Righteousness is imputed, not practiced. That is a fundamental different system. Jesus asked, what did you do? Paul asked, what do you believe? Jesus is relentlessly critical of wealth and power. Jesus says you cannot serve God and money. But we don't hear that in church today, do you? That's often ignored. It's one of those things they put aside and they hide it, right? Woe to you who are rich. Sell what you have and give to the poor. But Paul rarely criticizes wealth directly. Instead, he focuses on order, submission, and stability. Paul tells slaves to obey their masters. But Paul emphasizes staying in one social position. Paul minimalizes social and hero. That difference matters, especially when Christianity becomes entangled with empire. Now here's the historical pressure point. Jesus never evangelizes Gentiles during his ministry. He says he was sent to Israel. His movement is Jewish. Paul, however, is building a Gentile religion, and Gentiles were never going to live like Jews. So Paul does something revolutionary. He detaches himself and he detaches Jesus from the Torah. Not on purpose, not deceptively, but practically. Without Paul's interpretation, Christianity would have remained as a Jewish sect. Paul doesn't just spread Christianity, he refines it. Did Paul know he was changing things? This is important. Paul openly admits he did not receive his gospel from Jesus' earthly teaching. He says, I did not receive it from any man. Paul claims revelation. That means Paul is primarily interpreting Jesus. He is constructing theology based on personal experience. That's not an insult. That's a historical fact. But explains why Jesus and Paul sound different. But it explains why Jesus and Paul sound different. But why does the church choose Paul? Why does the church choose Paul? Paul's theology scales globally, detaches faith from culture, minimalizes ritual, supports social stability, adapts easily to empire. Jesus' teachings threatens wealth, disrupts hierarchy, demands radical ethics, resists institutional control. If you want a religion that survives Rome, you choose Paul, especially in America. If you want a religion that supports the American dream and worship of politics and worship of church and the institution, you choose Paul. And especially in worship of money, you choose Paul. That's exactly what happened here in America and across the world. Now, what does this mean for modern day Christianity? When churches say Jesus fulfilled the law, what they really mean is we follow Paul's interpretation of Jesus. We don't follow Jesus in the Gospels. We don't like that Jesus. It doesn't fit our culture, right? That's not evil, but it should be admitted. Once you see this, a lot of clicks into place. Why Jesus feels sidelined. Why sermons quote Paul more than the Gospels. Why ethics gets replaced by belief tests. Christianity didn't just preserve Jesus, it filtered him. Now, this is the honest conclusion. So let's say it plainly. Jesus and Paul do not always agree. The New Testament preserves that tension. Later theologies try to erase it, but the text there shows. That doesn't mean the Bible is useless. It means it's human. It means it's evolved. It's a human book written by men. It means power-shaped theology. And once you stop pretending everything fits perfectly, you can finally read it honestly. If this episode unsettled you, that's okay. Truth usually does. Next episode, we're going to ask the question, that sits underneath all of this? Who decided which version of Christianity won and why? Because which empire gets involved? Theology is never neutral. And this is the Ancient Echoes podcast. My name is Cherokee Canning. If you like our work, you like our podcast, please subscribe, please share. Please keep updated every Sunday. We're going to release a new episode. And hope everyone has a good night. And thanks for listening.